Hello, welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, National Sales Manager for Bona Adhesives.
And I'm Rob Johnson from Bona Training.
How we doing, Rob?
Pretty good.
Good.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. No complaints. I want to thank Pauline, your lovely bride. I mean, I joked around about you guys sending me a pecan pie, and it arrived yesterday, and it's almost gone. That was the absolute best pecan pie I've ever had in my life.
I love the day that you get it too. I called Wayne and said, "Hey, be on the lookout today. You know, I think your pie and some T-shirts are gonna show up today." And he goes, "Oh, great! I was having breakfast with Judy this morning, and I wanted to start a diet today." So
Yeah.
that a great way to start a diet or what?
It's funny how when I started diet, I'll put all the pressure on Judy.
No.
I say, you know what, Judy, you feed me too much. You know, I mean, the portions got to be smaller. You know, and I can't eat pasta and all this stuff now. I mean, you know, and you got like you bring like snacks like nuts and stuff in the house. I mean, I can't eat that. And so all my problems are hers.
She's
And then late at like about 8 o'clock at night, we'll watch TV, and I'll go, Judy, you have those nuts? What happened to those nuts? She goes, "You told me to hide them." I go, "I know, but just maybe just a little bit." And she goes, "Oh, Wayne," and she goes and gets them. So
now remember, it's the macadamia nuts for guys our age.
listen,
That's
yes,
what you want.
it's all in the right quantities.
The macadamia nuts are the testosterone builder that I was
Are they
telling
really?
you about. Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, all right.
yeah.
I'll look
You
at. I
gotta
actually
watch
like
what
them.
you gotta watch what nut you eat. You eat the wrong nut,
Yeah.
you're going the wrong way, baby.
Well, you remember when Southwest Airlines would give everybody peanuts? And once in a
Yes.
while you get on a plane and they say, "Well, today we can't give out peanuts because there's a passenger on here that is allergic to peanuts." And you want to stand up and go, "Who? Who?
Who is doing
Who?
this to
Who
me?
did this to everybody?" I'd like to call ahead on the airlines and tell them, you know, I can't, I have allergies to peanuts and everything, and you know, blah blah blah. So they make that announcement, and then break open about a 1 pound bag of peanuts during the middle of the flight. And they go, "Sir," I go, "No, I called it in. It was me." Turns out it's shellfish. I'm good. As I drop peanuts all over around me.
They, we had a lady at one flight a while back. She stood up and she was talking to like 8 rows around her and said, "I have a really bad airborne peanut allergy. So if anybody wants to eat their nuts, or if you brought peanuts or you want to eat please tell me, and I'll just go back and sit in the bathroom until you're done." And I was thinking, is anybody going to tell this woman, "Hey, you might want to head out. I'm gonna slowly eat this bag of nuts"?
I think you would. You know, listen. I brought this bag. I bought it in the airport, and I to be honest with you, I am a little hungry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How bad is that nut allergy, though?
Oh, it's terrible. And you know, for anybody who has it, I knew a guy who really had it bad. So, you know. All right.
My grandson has it. It's rough on parents. I used to just blow that stuff off, but man, Emily and Brian, their two boys got some egg allergy, some dairy, some nuts. It's rough, but we've learned a whole new way to cook, so nobody gets left out.
Well, you know, you feel like you hear stuff like that, you go, "Ah, whatever," because it doesn't affect you. You know, that's why you need to have empathy and really put yourself in the other people's position, man, because it is, you know, anytime you start really seeing how these things, they're real, man, they're problems.
Right.
But I do like my peanuts.
Well,
All right.
now it affects me, so that's why I
Yeah,
had to stand up and take notice.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Rob. So listen, you've said many times, we talked about this many times about, you know, what we do in this little world that we live in. Is flooring is we're craftsmen, right? And you know, we're not. It's not like putting part A on part B and assembling something that's already made or whatever. We're making something with our own hands, with our own eyes. We're feeling it and touching it and bringing it in the house, and it's living and growing. And when we put in floors for people or we sand floors, there's a lot of ways a job can go south. And I was just thinking about, ahead of this podcast, is like there's a lot of, you have the sanding process, and then you have the staining process and the finishing process, and then the afterwards, and then the installation process, and how many things along the way that can go wrong. So I thought maybe we'd break it down to each different process and start with the sanding first. And let's not even, I mean, we're not even including bidding the job properly, and getting the job, bidding the job, and getting the job, and coordinating the job, and buying the material, and all those things that go into it. I mean, that in itself is a job. But afterwards, when you're sanding the job now, and we're starting today. I mean, I think it is different than it was before. I don't think chatter marks are a thing like they used to be, right? With the we talked about belt sanders and the power drive and what have you. But so look at what can go. The things that can go wrong just with the sanding process alone. Okay. I think, and you think in your mind of, okay, what are the callbacks you hear about, and what are the callbacks you've experienced in your career? And I think you'd have to put scratches pretty close to the top of that list, right? Or somewhere on that list, anyhow, right? Edge or marks around the perimeter of the wall in a bad place, or between an island and a kitchen, or the using the wrong grit on a buffer and having sanding marks and sanding screen marks in the floor. Can lights in the ceiling have certainly changed the game on how we sand floors. I think, as I remember before can lights came in, you probably remember when candles were the main lighting source for homes.
Hey,
Dwelling.
we're gonna be nice to each other, right?
Yes, I think we
Yeah.
both learned our lesson.
We well, did we both learn a lesson, or
I'm so far I'm scot free.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
okay, all right,
I have learned. I've learned a lesson, big
okay,
time.
all
Uh,
right.
well, like I say to my students all the time, hey, in my heyday, it was 40/80 satin poly and bad lighting. You could get away with just about anything
Yeah.
back then.
Just the lighting, just changing the lighting, just opening the blinds, and just a window facing the ocean or whatever. Just what light does to our jobs
Yeah.
is, you could be a rock star on 10 jobs in a row and do the same process to the same floor, the same system, and get in the house with a different light source, and you got all kinds of problems. We talk about being a craftsman, and not all jobs are the same, and that way we have to charge, and why we have to keep honing our skills and what have you. What we did on the last job, or 5 jobs, or 10 jobs, you can't, there's no one, as much as we would like to have a system, and you can pretty much get a system in this business, and I think it's smart to have a system of what you do. But still, in all, every job is a custom job, and you sometimes have to tweak it to fit the job site. So scratches. What other than scratches on the sanding
Well,
job?
okay, hold on a second there, Tiger. Boy, you're flying this morning, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's early. I still got a lot of energy.
You had your Wheaties this morning. You're going, baby.
It's
Uh,
nuts.
right off the bat, you mentioned, we don't really have to worry about chatter marks anymore. I do want to touch on that a little bit, and it's something that I show all the students at the classes, and every single one of them, when I show them this little trick, they're like, "Wow, that's exactly right. That's exactly," because sometimes guys are calling me and stuff, and or they used to call me. Oh, I'm getting chatters. I'm getting chatter marks in the floor, and they're using belt sanders, so that that's impossible. How can you get a chatter with a belt sander? Well, around here, you know, or just about anywhere, but especially around here when it gets cold at night, if you put that drum away and you don't take the tension off of the sanding belt, that rubber's been running all day long. That rubber gets nice and warm and soft and pliable. And if you don't release the tension on that sanding belt, you're going to hold two flat spots on the rubber. Then when you come in the next day, now that rubber cools down, but when it cools down with some flat spots on it. And it takes the colder that drum got. If it was, outside in your truck overnight and it, dipped down into the 20s, that rubber's going to be pretty hard and it's going to stay hard for a little while. So guys will get chatter marks for a half hour, the first half hour of the job. So you need to, and especially around here, it gets so cold and everything, but anywhere, need to get into that habit of releasing the pressure off of that sanding belt, and that's going to take away a lot of issues that guys have with chatter marks. Because most of the guys I talk to, when they're talking, oh, I have chatter marks, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. Was it in the first one or two rooms of the job? And it's always, yeah, it was. And then it started to go away. That's after the drum starts to heat up. So
Um,
release the tension on those belts.
when I first learned that, I think it was an NWA class, and from then on it was habit from that day on. Um, that and also my wheels never touched the ground unless I was sanding. Sometimes I see guys wheeling in a belt sander across a cobblestone sidewalk and whatever. And I'm thinking, man, you're braver than I am. I don't trust nothing like that. I would no way I would do that. Even when it's in my van, it's on blocks. When I leave for the end of the day, I turn it up, put it on blocks. I take the tension off the belts. You're so right, Rob.
Well, that was the one that we learned the hard way. I hate to always go back to, you and I were around since they invented the wheel, but I remember all of our equipment, for years was nothing but steel wheels.
Yeah.
Remember? It was steel
Yep.
wheels. You could run those down the highway. You,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Clean them off, a little bit of brush them off a little bit, and you were good to go. And we learned that one the hard way when our equipment came in with the first set of like neoprene wheels, rolling that up and down driveways and sidewalks. Oh my God, I picked up just about every single piece you could pick up.
Well, we did a job one time. It was American Cherry, and routine sand refinish it, and everything went great. And then we put the finish on, and you could see the tiniest little indentations here and there on the job.
Oh,
And I'm like, what the hell, man? I've never experienced that before. And we're going, what? What? I mean, we're checking each other's shoes. What could have caused that? And then we looked at the machine last, and it was a steel wheels, but it had little couple little pebbles under it. You know what I mean? That got in
yeah.
that wheel like embedded. And American Cherry is a worst case scenario. So, what should have been like a 3 day job turned into a 5 day job. And because we saw it right away and told the guy, hey, we're going to need another day here sanding.
Mm.
So in the end, it turned out fine. And also, that's where I also learned where edgers with steel wheels on certain species of wood. Well, leave those indentations in the wood, and you don't see it till the end too. So, yeah,
We used to have a radiator. Do you remember the old radiator machines
yes, sir. Yeah,
that had like ball bearing wheel? They were like a big ball bearing wheel.
yep,
Yeah, we learned that one the hard way.
yeah, man.
Get away from those things. Yeah.
All the lessons come hard, man. All right, so sanding. What else, Rob? What callbacks in the sanding process alone? I mean, I'm not even going to go into stop marks and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty, pretty 101. Um,
You were talking about light. Um, and I always go back to what we're talking about in the schools because sometimes you really see guys like, wow, that is an eye opener. Okay. Every show that Pauline watches, as far as renovation shows, it's amazing how many of them knock out a wall in a kitchen and replace it with sliding glass doors, French doors, light. Okay. Everything is light. So, one of the things that I take a lot of time going over is light sources and sight lines. And where is the homeowner walking into the job? And when she walks into a room, where's she looking? What's the first thing she sees? Where's the light source coming in? Where are the doorways? Where you got to look at the room and figure out because you know, most of us for the longest time, we just walk into a room and we just start sanding, right? But now I got people when they walk into a room, now it's a calculation. Where are my sight lines? Where are the light sources coming in? And how many cuts am I going to make? Because we don't want to leave a short side cut in an entranceway in an area where somebody's going to walk. So now I take a look at the room. Where are the light sources? Where are the sight lines? How many cuts am I going to make? That's going to tell you exactly where to start your long cut, short cut, and maybe end up in the middle.
But you just stole what I was going to say too. Is about the cuts of the boards too. Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing
That
worse.
doesn't happen much, does it?
No, nothing. When we bought our house in California, in one of the bedrooms, you open the door and boom, 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 boom. There's a stair step right in front of the door with a board starting about 6 inches. And I was like, why in the world would the guy have put these boards right here? You could have put them on the, if you're going to do that, put them on the other side of the wall. Because the other side of the wall, I went to look at them and they're like long lengths. Like, well,
Beautiful.
that's
Right.
where the bed's going to be. Who cares?
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
little bit of
exactly. It
yeah,
it's those little things that make all the difference.
all the difference in the world.
I
Yep.
mean, you walked into that room and wow, that's crazy. I hate being right all the time, but
You might have seen me looking around here. I've been looking around to find out the NWFA conferences here in Milwaukee because I mentioned NWFA. I think it's May 2nd through 4th, I think. But there's the countdown. They have a countdown on their website somewhere. I was looking for it, how many days away it is. But uh, so just a heads up about that convention. I hope we're going to be there. I hope I always look forward to seeing everybody show up. So and come out and see the fellows and support the NWA and what have you. Milwaukee is more of a fun town than people realize it is. The Harley Davidson Museum is there, and there's some really cool bars there. So yeah, there you go.
I think I've talked about Milwaukee on the show before. I covered the Midwest a lot back in my sport days, and I had buddies. Hey, you travel out. What's your favorite city? I go, oh, Milwaukee, and they'd all laugh like I was putting them on. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
no, no. Milwaukee is It's got a great downtown. It's got a great, riverfront atmosphere. Um, I always I go, yeah, and you can, pull up to a great bar and park. No, the parking's, I mean, it's a nice, convenient, easy city to get around. So people are going to have a blast in Milwaukee. You're not gonna believe it because I'm a true believer of the town now,
Nice, very
and
nice.
everybody is so nice.
Yep.
That's I'll tell you a quick story about how nice people are. Okay, to get into the Boston Garden, Billy and I had worked on the Boston Garden a few times, doing different things on the Celtics floor, and I mean, it's almost like it's probably easier to get into a prison than it is to get into the Boston Garden. Okay, and then once you're in, it's like there's a chaperone, a guard with you the whole time, and I get it. It's security, right? I mean, you just can't have anybody, walking in. So, the night I pull in, well, I pull in the afternoon, and they're playing the Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta Hawks is also pulling in. Okay, so I kind of pull in behind the Atlanta Hawks bus. So as I get to the gate, I had sent nobody a heads up that I was showing up. I got a call. Hey, can you come out and take a look at something? I was like, yeah, no problem. So I didn't tell anybody I was coming, right? I just figured I'll get to the gate and they'll call somebody. They pull up to the gate and there's this kid working the gate, 20s. He said, "Can I help you?" I go, "Yeah, I'm here to take a look at the floor." He goes, "Oh, okay, no problem. Just, park right over there. Just, park on the other side of the bus." I was like, "Okay." Now remember, nobody knows I'm coming. And hey, kids, don't try this at home. You probably get arrested now, but this was, 8 years ago. So I park over Now I'm getting out of the car, and the guys from the team, they're walking in through the door, in the back of the arena. So I said, well, I'm not gonna walk in with these guys. I'll wait till they clear out. So now you come up. Now they're in there. I come up to a guy in kind of like a glass booth with the microphone. I said, hey, man. He goes, can I help you? Yeah, here, take a look at the floor. Oh, okay. Let me buzz you in. Boom, buzzes me in, and next thing you know, I'm standing on the basketball court, and nobody has said a word to me. I
Wow.
mean, in Boston, I'd have been jumped. They'd have, put me in handcuffs.
Wow, that's crazy.
And they're just the nicest damn people.
Mm.
So finally, I'm like, hey, and I had to speak to the, head superintendent or whatever, and I'm finding somebody, hey, can you say, call so and so and get him down here? He comes down and he goes, hey, how'd you get in? I said, I just told everybody I was working on the floor. They just let me right in. So I love that town. People are gonna have a blast in Milwaukee, and
Yeah.
do yourself a favor. Talk to some of the townies. Talk to some of the people who live around there because they are just the best people you'll ever meet.
Well, it is May 2nd through the 4th, and it's 73 days, 22 hours, and 33 minutes away. That's the countdown, the expo countdown. So, all right. All right. So let's go move on to the staining process. What can go wrong with the staining process? Uh, Obviously, getting a stain in the wrong place, right? Putting it where, spilling the stain or putting it somewhere it's not supposed to be. Um, Wrong color, uneven color, not drying before you put the finish coats on. So in that process alone, there's a lot of things that can go south. And probably, if you look at the list of complaints of that callbacks, whatever, stain's probably pretty high up there. Whether it's the wrong color or because of the sanding process, the color is not what they wanted it to be, or something went wrong in the stain selection. A lot of sometimes also buyer's remorse. I thought I wanted ebony because that little 2 foot by 2 foot sample looked really nice, but now when the whole floor is that color, now it's an issue. So
You know what I think can help a lot, and yeah, I'm getting this from the tech line. I mean, we get a lot of stain calls, and a lot of the stain calls, I think, right off the bat, could have completely been eliminated on the day you walked in and looked at the stain.
mhm. Yeah,
And make sure that the homeowner has taken a look at the stain, or snap pictures of color samples, and you know what I mean, because once you get finish on it, now all of a sudden, now you're really in a quagmire. You've just laid out a bundle of money for finishes and everything, and now everything's a do up, because that's the big one that we hear on the tech line is, what can I do now? I'm done. And now they want it, darker or lighter. And, so now you're swimming for your life. So, I think if I get fired and have to go back to doing floors and staining, boy, I am going to be holding everybody's hand every step of the way about, okay, we sure here? This is all good. Let's walk the floor a little bit. You really love this color, right? Because man, I feel for these guys. I feel their pain through the phone. I really do. I don't want to sound like our president saying, "Oh, I feel your pain." I do. I know, because they're done. They thought they were done, and now everybody's like, well, here's this and here's what it looks like. So you
um,
got to bring the homeowner in before you start capping that stain off.
yeah. And then obviously, if you have to sand it over, yeah, you have to worry about bleed back, and then that your sawdust is more flammable than ever. So be very careful about that. Um, Also, we lived in an area with a lot of 5/16 floors I talked about, or if you're on a really thin floor and the floor is dark and they want to go light, that's another conversation that has to happen because we would tell them, look, I'm not going to be able to get all this stain out of the soft grain. So on this sample, you're looking at this nice clean sample of a very light color. Be aware that you got these nail holes here that the stain around. I won't be able to get the stain around all that out. The stain in the soft grain between the boards. You know, customer expectations, having that conversation up front goes a mile, man. Finishes. Also, another area where, probably the biggest area of concern. Now, whether it's the sheen issues, I thought the semi gloss was going to be a little shiny, but not that shiny. Or is it going to be this the satin? Is it going to get shinier than that, or is it going to, you know what I mean? Those conversations, which all comes down to expectations, and then drips, a few drips on the floor, a holiday, a T-bar mark, a wand mark, those type of things. So there's areas, where these jobs can go south. You try to figure out what could go wrong on my jobs, and I think it's so important to walk the job. And when you're coating the floor, especially back in the day when all we had was T-bars. Now a lot of guys have switched to rollers, and I think it ends a lot of problems. In some cases, can open up some problems, but I think by and large it ends a lot. It can stop a lot of problems. But we would really walk that floor to determine which way we're going to coat this floor, with long hallways and stuff like that, and which would be the best way to approach this. And some of the ways are just really out of the box. You know what I mean? They're just not just start, pick a wall and start going, because you got an 80-foot long hallway, and with a light source coming right at you, that's going to see everything. Or stairs is coming right up to the floor where your eye is going to be level with that floor now. It really takes a lot of thinking on how I want to approach this job.
You got to map it out. I've told that story 100 times on the show about the time Bum and I were doing a job. I don't know, it was 6 or 8 rooms. It was a lot of rooms. And I was just going to jump in because I've done it so many times. Okay, we'll start here. Let's go.
Hmm.
And then, I really sat down and mapped it out. I drew a picture of how we were going to, and I completely changed how we did it. I just made a bunch of escape routes everywhere, laid that first coat of finish down, let it dry, went to other rooms and by the time we were done laying all our escape routes, everything tied together nice. But if I didn't sit and map it out,
Hmm.
it'd have been a lot tougher than it was. Okay.
Yeah.
It would have been a
I,
lot tougher than it was.
I've been on jobs before where, okay, it's a very complicated layout, and the first coat I put on, I'll go this direction, thinking that'll be the way to go, and then the second coat I go, no, I didn't like that, man, because when I got to here, it got a little
Got,
complicated.
got
Let's
a little
start,
hanky. Yeah.
yeah, let's start over here and work the other direction, and you kind of work it out, and hopefully by you put the last coat on, you got that figured out, which is going to be the best way to go. And setting yourself up for success is so important, man. Especially when it comes to the end of the job, you put so much work into the job. You've really, and that's the biggest heartbreaker to me, is when you've sanded the floor, put all the work and the efforts into sanding to get a beautiful sand job. You stained it, you put all the work into that, and now because of a decision, maybe not a really thought out decision or whatever, or a small mistake that can cost you the whole job. It's a heartbreaker, man. This is why guys got to get paid, man. Well, and it is a craft. It is truly an art and a craft to do floors. You know,
I think something that can help with those little things too, like, those little drips and yeah, that can really make or break a job. But I think as craftsmen, eh, and I think you and I have both learned this through the years of talking to so many different types of guys and how they run their business. And I think the guys who are really successful are the guys who offer not only their craft, but the customer experience, their customers' experience, And I think one thing that we realize now is those customers are pretty nervous about what's going to happen. Most of them have never been through something like this before. They met you and everything at the estimate, but, there's a lot of nervousness, some anxiety with them. And I think that's something that that's what we have to be looking at. I know if I had to ever go back and, start up another business or something, man, I would be all about that. I mean, not only hitting the craft, but also offering that experience to the customer, constant updates, and make sure everybody on the crew introduces himself when they walk through the door. I want to be want to be friendly and everything, but I don't want to be too friendly. I don't need an invitation to the family reunion. I don't want to talk too much, but I want them to know that they can reach out to me. That kind of. I think the guys who are doing really well are offering up that customer experience.
Before you go there, I want to finish one thought on the finishing. When I knew that I was going to be okay in this business, when I had the confidence that okay, I can run this business and I can do this job, is when I realized no matter what I did, I could fix. Whatever went wrong, I know I could fix it, and that was very empowering for me. And um, it's not a bad, that's why I like going to a lot of these schools, like your schools, the end of phase schools, or practicing on your own panels, practicing a repair. You say, look, put some drips out there and say, how can I fix this? What's the best way? Take razor blades or nib files or those type of things and different type of sanding grits and maybe some automotive polishes or whatever to try to fix a repair. Make a mistake and try to fix it. That's when you know you got it. Because, I mean, it's one thing to do stuff by the book and do whatever, but nothing always works out perfectly. So having a way to be able to do these repairs and fix things, man, it goes miles and really can get you out of a lot of jams and save you a lot of heartache. But you're right. To your point, I think people want to be heard today, and there's nothing. If you got a customer that doesn't think that their needs or they're getting heard, you got a real problem on your hands. And I've been on a job where a contractor, not a flooring contractor, general contractor, was talking to a homeowner in the kitchen, and I could hear her angst about the cabinets. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
he was, no, no, yeah, we got it. We're gonna do this, whatever. He just pulled right past her, and
right.
I just seen the look on her face like, no, I'm that's not what I'm talking about, and I don't really think you got it right now. And he just kind of blew past it, whatever. And I'm thinking this dude's gonna have a hard time. And sure enough, man, he did. And finally she's like, stop. I don't think you understand it. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I want to talk to somebody else because you're not understanding me. And so, you know,
Wow.
customers need to be heard. And I think you're so right, Rob. And I would have to change the way I did business too. I've said it before. I was not a very touchy feely guy. I was all business. I'm in your home. It's business. I told my guys, don't be talking about anything except this job. Don't talk about any. Don't get outside this box of what we're doing right here, right now. We're proceed to be experts in this one area. Don't start talking about anything else that could go down, especially today, that could go down the wrong road. I mean, some people are just like we've probably all had customers that even when the job went fine, everything went great, couldn't be great. They got the check in their hand and they're walking around like I just don't want to write this check. I got to find something. You know what I mean? There's got
Yeah,
to be something before I write this check. It's like you have to drag it out of their hand. Look, the job is done. It's perfect. You know it's perfect. I know it's perfect. Write the check. You know what I mean? But there's
yeah.
just like they just hanging on to that check, and a lot of it is their past experience. They feel like once you leave with that money, that's the end of you. And I think like you're to your point, making it about the experience that understand you're in good hands here. We have
Eh, yes, exactly.
we've been around a while. We're very good at what we do. I'm accessible, and I think that is. And by the way, I'll give you all these things, but I want to get paid for all these things too.
And I think at the end, I mean, you and I have both been on jobs where they couldn't wait to pay you. They were happy to pay you.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. I don't know how many times Pete and I would hear that, like, wow, we thought it was going to be much dustier. We thought it was going to be this. We thought it was going to be that. So, there are those people that can't wait to pay you because they have had some bad experiences in the past. And now finally, you've given them. And, when you were talking, just saying, all I could think of was my uncle and my dad. And one of the best things about them, one of the biggest things I learned from them is never get excited. Okay? Never get excited. Too many people get too excited when something goes wrong. You know what I mean? They start flipping out. And if you're flipping out or you're flipping out in your guys or something, think of what the homeowner's hearing or seeing, right? Like no matter what, you blew a plug on a motor or something like that, just take it in stride. These things happen. Don't even mention it. Stay calm. If
I've
you
always,
stay calm, your homeowner, your customer, they're gonna feel it. But boy, if something happens, like I should have fixed that plug 2 months ago. Those kind of things. That's all gonna.
my favorite kind of people are the kind of people that like do horrible, horrible work, but stay completely calm. Like I would like to analyze how you're able to do that. You know what I mean? Like you're getting just torched, and you're and for good reason, and you just take it all in stride. Yep, I understand. Yep, we got the drapes on fire. I get it. Yep, but you know what? Things happen.
Hey, guess what? You're gonna get new drapes out of this.
Yeah, yeah.
What Go pick them out. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was the king of that. That's how I got through middle school. That was me in middle school. I
Yeah.
failed science in the seventh. I was a seventh grade kid. Failed science. I failed.
Wow.
4 quarters. End of the thing. Failed. Big F in the report card. You know what it said next to the F?
Huh.
Pleasure to have in class.
Well, you did your job.
Yeah, pleasure to have in class. He failed. How was he a pleasure? Oh,
You know,
my parents went to that was probably one of the worst report cards I ever had in my life. I mean, it was bad. And all the teachers loved me. My parents are like, how? It was one of the few times in my life where my parents requested a meeting with some of the teachers. Like,
Mhm.
you can't keep pushing this kid through just because you guys like him.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Gotta hold them to the fire. Um, I didn't fail seventh grade science because I think it was either no, it had to be seventh grade because we were in Michigan at the time. Rudyard High School, junior high. No, seventh grade was in high school in it was a military school. Um, in science, our class was we had to build these aquariums, and however long they lasted was your grade. You know what I mean? Like we had to put sand in there, you had to put different plants in there and what have you. And if they lasted like to the end of the whatever, you got like an A. So, and so we all made ours. We went back for a 3 day vacation. I came back and they're all on the wall. Okay, on this back wall. I looked at mine and everything in there was dead. It was like Chernobyl. I was shocked. I couldn't believe how dead everything was. So I opened up the window at lunch and I pushed six of them out the window. So we got a do over, six of us. So, yay,
There you go.
it's science.
You see?
Okay, Rob.
Yeah, science.
All right, we got to wrap it up here pretty quick. So,
So offer up that experience.
yeah,
Keep everybody posted of what's going on. Make them part of the job. Take all doubt out of their mind of everything when you're going to be there. How you like the colors. I'm going to have a color down. Let's get together before I start capping this color off. That kind of thing. Make them part of the experience. It's just going to go a long way for everybody.
there is one more I didn't bring up that I wanted to bring up, and that one is that you made too much money off me syndrome. Which is real sometimes, where you finished a job, you've been there a week and they give you 9,000, or you're asking for $9,000, and they all started looking around like, wow, $9,000? You guys were here like 36 hours, and you have to be able to defend that, and that happens. That absolutely does happen, especially when a guy went to school for 7 years, and he's not making anywhere near money you are. You're in a pair of shorts and maybe got long hair and tattoos or whatever, and this guy's a military crew cut and whatever, and he's done everything right his whole life and went to college all these years, and he's got six kids and whatever, and he's barely making it through, and you're 26 years old and you got a six-pack stomach and he's 60 pounds overweight, and now he's going to write you a check for $9,000. So sometimes that happens. So yeah, I think you have to be. That's why the experience is everything. If you get to the end of the job and you just knocked it out of the park and everything went great, and you bring him the newspaper every day because it's sitting at the end of his driveway, you're overly polite to him, whatever, and you do all these different things, and at the end and especially sometimes if I know, like, wow, we made some pretty good money on this job, I might go, I might give him some coasters for the furniture, you know what I mean, and a Bona cleaning kit and everything, just to just go over the top, and then say, listen, call me back in a year's time, you know what I mean, when you go through and look at it, if you need coasters, whatever, then we really made good money on the job. But
It's funny you said that because I had that exact same conversation with my dentist. I did his floors. And he was literally cutting me a check, and he's like, holy mackerel, this is,
yeah,
And I'm like, well, and him and I were friends, so we could, kind of bust with each other. So I kind of busted him back. I'm like, really? I mean, you're in my mouth for a cleaning, and I'm like $200,
yeah,
And he goes, hey, I went to school for 8 years
yeah.
to learn how to do that. I have a huge investment. I go, do you know how much that machine is?
Yeah.
I go, that machine right there cost me $5,000. And I was pointing to the drum sander. He's like, no way. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. He did not believe that.
Wow.
And I said, I've been doing this since I was 4 years old. How many years is that? You got 8 years in school? The rest of the time you're just hacking around.
That's
I've been doing this since I was 4.
Yes. Hey, and that's the other point. We'll leave it at this: is that you're also paying me for my experience to get to this point. All these things that I did, I talked about the sanding process. I talked about the staining process, the finishing process. And we didn't even go into the installation with acclimation and subfloor prep and all these other different things. All these things, not to mention running the
all
business.
these things that I make look easy.
Yes. So that's what you're paying for. All right, Rob, I appreciate it, man. We have a great episode coming up I'm looking forward to, so we'll leave it at that. This has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please stay tuned for another episode.